Everyone, welcome back to Chip Stock Investor. Doing a quick update on Vertex after their Q4 2024 results were reported. If you're a Semiconductor Insider member, you probably know that we added this stock to our portfolio just recently. If you want to know more info like this, check out our Semiconductor Insider membership. Link in the video description gets you access to our Discord server where we give you up-to-date details of what we're doing with our portfolio. We'll go over a few key points about Vertex. We'll first talk about what Vertex is working on, what their goal and milestones are for the coming years. We'll then talk about the new drug approvals, and we'll finish up with some financial details to consider if you're thinking about adding this to your portfolio. Maybe you already have added it, but we'll talk about what we're planning to do with our position in Vertex. Before we continue, quick word from the sponsor of today's video, public.com. If you're serious about investing, you need to know about public.com. That's where you can invest in just about everything: stocks, options, bonds, even crypto. And you can earn some of the highest yields in the industry, like the 6% or higher yield you can lock in with Public's new bond account. Public is FINRA registered, SIPC insured platform that takes your investments as seriously as you do. Fund your account in just 5 minutes or less at public.com/CSI and get up to $10,000 when you transfer your old portfolio. That's public.com/CSI. This ad has been paid for by Public Investing. You can check out the full disclosure in the video description below. Here's some of the key metrics that Vertex provided that helped them finish out 2024 strong. 2024 was the 10th consecutive year of revenue growth. We'll show you that chart a little bit later from our friends at FinChat. But Vertex has relied heavily on their revenue from cystic fibrosis medications or treatments. That's been their bread and butter for several years now. But they've been rapidly working on some other medications and treatments for various other disease processes and symptoms, including pain, sickle cell disease, and transfusion-dependent beta thalassemia, that treatment Kasey that they reduced with CRISPR Therapeutics. And then they have some other medications directed towards treatment of type 1 diabetes and APOL1-mediated kidney disease. Those two that they're working on for future opportunities and hopefully some approvals coming down the pike. In 2024 and then in early 2025, Vertex had two recent new approvals. Aleptric was the first one, that's for cystic fibrosis. The second one, Jornavix, for moderate to severe acute pain. In 2023, Vertex set the goal of having 5 new treatments by 2028, and they're well on their way. That very far box on the right in this chart, they've had 4 treatments already: Kasey for sickle cell disease, and also for that transfusion-dependent thalassemia. Aleptric is the newest one for CF. And then finally, in early 2025, they got approval from the USDA for Jornavix. While Vertex has approval mostly for cystic fibrosis drugs, with that new medication, suzetrigine for pain, that definitely helps broaden their portfolio. But as I mentioned earlier, they have a lot of different medications and treatments that they hope to get approved within the coming years. They're in various phases of development, whether in research stage, you can see those on the left, and then various phases of clinical trials that they're working on through some of those other treatments for various disease processes. Let's key in on Jornavix. That's the newest non-opioid pain medication that has been approved by the USDA. You can see that it's the first one in over 20 years that's actually been approved for moderate to severe acute pain that is not an opioid. And you may recall that there was a sell-off on Vertex late last year after the phase 3 trials came out for suzetrigine for lumbar sacral radiculopathy or sciatica back pain. Now, there has been some concern voiced related to the adoption of this medication. I've read a few articles saying that this is never going to fly, but U.S. policies are changing, and it's becoming more and more in vogue to end the opioid crisis. New policies are in place and possibly more to come that will make this medication more attractive to pretty much everyone. The cost involved in pain control, of course, is much more than just the cost of the pill itself. You can see at the bottom of this chart, they have some policy tailwinds, the No Pain Act that was enacted on January 1st. And then, as it mentions, 7 states have started legislation to support non-opioid medication prescription, and it is also proposed in 17 other states. More states are most likely going to join in this movement as well. They're working hard to get this medication into pharmacies, into hospital systems, high-volume hospital systems, and we'll see most likely the results of this in the second half of 2025. As I mentioned at the outset, Vertex had a record annual revenue of over $11 billion. Revenue for Vertex has steadily climbed year over year. It was 12% up year over year from 2023. And for the revenue outlook for 2025, they expect a range of $11.75 billion to $12 billion, which would be about an 8% growth at the midpoint. It's a bit of a slowdown from this year's 12%, but they expect to have continued growth in cystic fibrosis medications, including that launch of Aleptric, as well as the slow growth from Casgevy starting to accumulate in this upcoming year, and in the latter half of 2025, the addition of that pain medication suzetrigine. Although it's a deceleration in revenue growth, still not bad for this big pharma company. So what's next for Vertex Pharmaceuticals? They have a lot of things in the mix, a long runway of growth in the upcoming years. These are their anticipated milestones in 2025 and beyond. They're working on expanding the indications of the drugs that they currently have, like some of their bread and butter cystic fibrosis drugs, as well as getting the reach of some of the other newer treatments out, like Casgevy. They want to reach more and more patients that are suffering from sickle cell disease that would benefit from this treatment. And then as far as the pain management goes, suzetrigine still in several phases of trials for various indications other than moderate to severe acute pain. And then, as we mentioned at the beginning, medications for kidney disease as well as type 1 diabetes still in the works for Vertex. Vertex also broke down the patient opportunity that they have with these medications. Vertex is really trying to target these patient populations all over the world that are suffering from these various illnesses, and it's a large population. Of course, their medications are in competition with other pharmaceutical companies, but the pool is quite big, and that's the point of this slide that they provided to us. They have a large opportunity for growth. Okay, let's move on to point number 3 about their financials. We'll start with this one regarding the operating income. Operating income was only up about 7% in 2024, and most likely this was due to the development and related expenses to bring those new treatments to market. We'll be keeping a close eye on this as we see Vertex return to growth. Also, in a previous discussion about Vertex, we noted the Alpine acquisition that they did in May. That's still creating a bit of an overhang for GAAP profitability, which makes it appear that Vertex isn't profitable, including the purchase of Alpine as an R&D expense for accounting purposes. That Alpine acquisition is also having a similar effect on their free cash flow. This R&D expense is going to drop off of the trailing 12-month metrics in Q2 of this coming year in 2025, which will clear up the picture a little bit. We will be looking for a return to free cash flow growth for Vertex as they begin to monetize those developments from the last few years and the treatment rollouts that they've had and monetization of those treatments. But in the meantime, while we wait for the resumption of that profitable growth, we really like the balance sheet for Vertex. They have lots of cash, over $6 billion in cash, and then they converted some of that cash to long-term assets. Over $5 billion to long-term assets. You can think about those as long-dated treasuries and similar debt that collects interest income for Vertex. Vertex has absolutely no debt, and so it's still structured like a high-growth business, and we're really hoping that that will be the case as these new treatments come to market. Vertex stock is currently trading for around 22 to 23 times both one-year forward GAAP price to earnings and price to free cash flow. We think it's a reasonable price currently, and so we started up a gradual accumulation via DCA before the Q4 earnings update. If the story continues to play out like we hope, we'll slowly continue our DCA of Vertex Pharmaceuticals for at least a year or two to build our position in our portfolio. Thanks for watching this episode of Chip Stock Investors today. Make sure you like the video, hit the subscribe button, share with your friends. Check out Semiconductor Insider, where you can get access to our Discord server, where we give you up-to-date information on all the stocks that we talk about here on our videos and much more. We can't make a video on everything. So check it out in the description below, and we'll see you all again soon at Chip Stock Investor.